Everyone. Welcome to MVP's national briefing, the plan to win the midterms. So I'm Zoe. I'm MVP's communications director, and I just want to say thank you so much for being here. Take a minute, introduce yourself in the chat. My name is, I'm joining from, and what motivates me the most about winning the midterms is. So my name is, I'm joining from where, and what motivates me about winning the midterms. So put it in the chat. We've got hundreds and hundreds of people registered. People are joining as we speak. So let's go on to that next slide. For anybody who's new to MVP, the quick, what is MVP? Um, think of us like a mutual fund for political giving. So this is me. I'm Zoe, the director of communications. MVP is a mutual fund for political giving. So we raise money from all over the country. We give it out to the most impactful local organizing and movement building organizations around the country that are doing year-round organizing, doing electoral work, winning all the key races in all the key places. So a few just quick notes as we get started. If you want, you can still invite others to join. Uh, and we're going to email everybody the recording and the slides in the next 1 or 2 days. So you'll have everything as we go. Um, you can use the Q&A feature to ask questions as we go. We're going to close the chat while the speakers are going so that we don't all get too distracted. And if you need closed captions, you can actually do that in Zoom. And if you have trouble, just ask for help. So looking at the agenda, we're going to kick off with a few words on the big picture of where we're at in this moment and what's possible ahead, and then go right to what's our plan? What's the electoral strategy for this year? You'll hear from MVP staff, and then you'll hear from MVP grantee partners about the work that they're doing to win the midterms. And then after the hour, we'll officially close and we'll do 30 minutes of extra Q&A for anybody who wants to stay on. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to our founder and executive director, Billy Wimsett.
Hello, welcome everyone. Welcome. Thank you, Zoe. And I want to give a huge shout out to our friends who invited people to join this call. Channy Nicholas, Jess Craven, and our amazing MVP volunteers. And by the way, you can become an MVP volunteer from anywhere in the country, even beyond our local hub teams. So we are in the fight of our lives and we are doing a lot of winning. Are y'all ready to win? We've been so depressed, but we're starting to win more and more. Are you guys ready to win? So, big picture, we've been winning so many elections, special elections, the 2025 elections, we blew it out, overperforming everywhere. Next slide. And Trump's approval is like going down and down and down, and that is really going to hurt them. His political capital is already incredibly diminished due to the hard work we've been doing. We've been mobilizing. We have momentum. Shout out to No Kings coming up March 28th. No Kings is coming up. And we have also been supporting work on the ground, stopping ICE in places like Minnesota. For anyone who knows MVP, you know our roots in Minnesota run deep. We have 3 key team members on the ground in Minnesota, and they've been building the Minnesota Miracle for years. And over the last month, they've been an intense on the ground situation that is moving the needle in the national conversation, and we've been intensely supporting them. And I want to lift up a quote from my colleague Javier Murillo, who heard this. Yeah, Javier, you didn't know I was going to say this. Who heard this from other cities are now, it's a chant going around. We're not scared. We're not afraid. Minnesota taught us to be brave. And that is the spirit, the spirit of people putting their bodies on the line, on the front lines, that we're going to take with us in everything we do. And we have 4 big jobs over the next couple years. The first one is to do exactly what Minnesota is doing, blocking autocracy any way we can. The second is we need to win the hugest blue wave in these midterms. That's what this call is about, and that's what we're going to talk about the rest of this time. And if you think, oh, those are in the fall, 7 months from now is when early voting starts. We need to go big. There's a huge Republican advantage in money right now, and we don't have to match that because we have that energy and momentum on our side, but we got to invest big to make sure we have a biggest blue wave that's unstealable, and that will lead us into momentum for part three, winning a convincing Democratic trifecta in 2028 so that we can have a big reset in 2029. Those are our four big jobs. And I want to say, just a little context, you know, we have the momentum right now, but going into 2028 and to actually change things in 2029, we're going to have to do big adaptive change. So MVP, we took the loss in 2024 as a huge learning that we have to do things better on so many levels. Next slide, please. And so we have what MVP is known for is supporting local organizing, which is the foundational level of the cake. And our state teams and our program team are going deep with leveling up the state work with our partners and just having really intensive work on making the state work better, more rigorous. We've done briefings about this. We're going to do more briefings about this in the future. In addition, we added two other layers to the cake: media innovation, collaboration, and meta organizing with allies, which are growing parts of what we call MVP 2.0, having a more holistic strategy. And I just want to leave you with one picture, which is we've been so depressed, we've been so beat down, and every day it's like, it's so bad. And I just want to offer that if we play our cards right, we have a real chance to win things bigger than we can imagine right now. Remember the depths of how bad things were in the Bush years. Do you love this photo? Remember how bad things were in the Bush years when it seemed like they might have, and after 2024, it seemed like we might never get power again, and they were just gonna, make things worse and worse and worse. And then you had the unthinkable. A community organizer from the south side of Chicago, Barack Hussein Obama, became the president and made things way better. I think that the place we're in now and where we need to focus our brains, beginning with the ends in mind, is 2029. We have the opportunity to have the best political turnaround ever and have something that we can't even imagine right now, right? We have all the ingredients. We have an unpopular incumbent. We have the pendulum that's going to swing. We know Trump modeled boldness. The Democrats are like, okay, when we get in power, we're going to have to be bolder than we ever have before. The Supreme Court expanded executive powers so they can do that. We have a mandate for change, and we need to expect the unexpected and set our minds on where we are going, which is a much better country in 2029, and kneecapping all the terrible things he's doing. Just 7 months from now, early vote. 8 months from now, we are going to have the opportunity to do that. This is an all-in moment. Go team. What can you do? We are here to recruit you to be part of this movement that's going to turn things around, to donate and organize like you want to win. And with that, I'm passing it to my incredible colleague, Sarah Chasen Warner, to talk about how we're going to do that.
Hello, hi. My name's Sarah Chasen Warner. I am the co-director for state programs here at Movement Voter PAC. I'm excited to have the opportunity to both be your MC and facilitator today, but also to give an overview of MVP's electoral approach. As you heard from Billy, our guiding principle for making investments this cycle is focused heavily on striking at the heart of autocracy. And there were several strategies that we use here at MVP to do that. And of course, winning elections is part of this effort. And we will win. We have to win. There is no other choice. We have to win. So before I get into 2026, I'm going to go back just a moment to 2025. Our 2025 investments were largely chosen along these lines, targeting races that could make a big positive change in people's lives. That's always the baseline, right? And then, second, helping that these races had a role in stopping authoritarianism. And you saw that in our targeting of Prop 50 in California and the Virginia legislature, both of which winning essentially meant making gains against the Republican efforts to redistrict the U.S. House in their favor. And we'll talk a little bit more about redistricting in a minute. Second, the Supreme Court races in Wisconsin and Pennsylvania gave us an important backstop against authoritarianism in these really important battleground states. Winning Virginia and New Jersey governor's races, which often serve as a bellwether for the election to come in the next year. And of course, winning the New York City mayoral race and providing a clear alternative to Trumpism while he tried to exact anti-immigrant policies in New York City, Trump. So in 2025, we spent a lot of our time focusing in this space. We anticipate continuing to do this in 2026. And I'm going to give you just a quick overview of our main objectives. One, flip the House. Have to flip the House. Two, swing for the Senate. Three, win competitive Attorney General, Secretary of State, and Supreme Court races. Four, break up GOP trifectas where we can. And five, gain and retain Democratic trifectas. Again, all of these meant with the idea of making significant change in people's lives and stymieing the spread of authoritarianism. And I'm going to do a brief review of each of these before I hand it over to our speakers who are going to do deeper dives into this. Next slide, please. Thank you. So as we look at the U.S. House, we want to flip the House and gain the largest majority possible. Again, the House has a role in stymieing authoritarianism. By law, budget bills have to originate in the House, having the opportunity to block legislation and the opportunity to initiate investigations. And you can see the targets that we have here, and I'm excited a little bit later for us to hear about the work happening in New Jersey, Alaska, and Battleground Alliance. MVP has been funding work in these states since February of 2025 to hold electorally vulnerable Republicans accountable. This is part of the drumbeat as we head towards November of 2026. This is not an 8-week sprint before the election in November. This began in February of 2025. We're also looking at swinging for the U.S. Senate. And of course, there are some protects that we need to have in the U.S. Senate. Next slide, please. I'm sorry. Oh, gosh. Here I said, please go back one. I'm sorry. Here I got all excited about U.S. House redistricting and then forgot to talk about it in depth. So we have been engaged in U.S. House redistricting work. This has been the wild card. We invested in Indiana, New Hampshire, and California in order to stop Republican power grabs and to redistrict in California through Prop 50. We lost in Texas and North Carolina. We have ongoing battles in Virginia, Kansas, Nebraska, and Maryland. And of course, the wild card here as well is in the Supreme Court's Calais case, where the Supreme Court could essentially enable racial gerrymandering by striking down portions of the Voting Rights Act, Section 2. So if that happens, we anticipate Florida, Mississippi, Alabama, and Louisiana are likely at risk for redistricting after that. We are working on a Southern plan in that situation. But of course, we have to limit the Republican power grab for the U.S. House in order to keep the U.S. House competitive, which I am confident that we can do. Next slide, please. As we look at the U.S. Senate as well, clearly we need the U.S. Senate to claw back this U.S. Supreme Court to block bad nominations, to block legislation again, having that like legislative goalie. And you can see we've got a variety of targets across the country, several protects, a couple of flips, both in our Tier 1, North Carolina and Maine, and then Tier 2, Alaska, Ohio, Iowa, and Texas. As we move forward into the state races, you heard me say earlier, that there are really important competitive secretaries of states races, attorneys general, and state Supreme Courts. And these have a huge role in beating back autocracy through both judicial action by administering elections in a fair and free manner and protecting vulnerable communities. These are all really critical parts to our efforts to limit the spread of authoritarianism. And then the last part, as I mentioned earlier, objectives 4 and 5 are state trifectas. States are the wall against the Trump administration and the implementation of the Trump agenda. So the only place where we have an opportunity this year likely to break up a GOP trifecta is New Hampshire. But we have a lot of opportunities to gain Democratic trifectas across the country as well. And you can see it's Nevada, it's Wisconsin, it's Pennsylvania, so on and so forth. So as we wrap up, you can see there is a lot of overlap in a lot of states and a lot of density in the work that we have to do. We're really excited to have the opportunity to hear from Battleground Alliance around the U.S. House work, and then our work in our Western States Advisor, New Jersey and Alaska. I'll wrap up before I hand this over and introduce Heather Booth by saying that we live and breathe this work here at MVP. We go to sleep thinking about this work. We wake up thinking about this work. There is the commitment that we have to winning and stymieing authoritarianism is significant. And we are so grateful for everything that you do to support that commitment. So I'm going to hand this over now to Heather Booth with Battleground Alliance. And before I do that, I'm just going to do a small amount of bragging about Heather. So Heather is one of the country's leading strategists on progressive issue campaigns and driving issues in elections. She's currently serving as the National Outreach Director for Battleground Alliance. And you can see the long list, and these are just a few of her accomplishments. She organized in the civil rights women's movement, SDS and SNCC, started Jane, an underground abortion service before Roe, is the founding director and chair of the Midwest Academy, and has given so much to the world. I hope you'll watch the documentary. We can share the link about Heather Booth and her work. I'll also share as well that I am one of many women who was mentored by Heather Booth as a young adult. I was a 27-year-old executive director for the first time, trying to make a lot of headway and change in the purple state of New Hampshire. I would not be where I am without Heather Booth. So with that, I hand this over to Heather.
I love you, Sarah. I love MVP and all of those who are watching and are our movement partners. And you know that when we organize with love at the center, we can change this world. We've done it before, and we'll do it again when we convert protest into political power. That's the lesson that I first learned in the civil rights movement. This picture on the left is a picture of me at 18 years old with Fannie Lou Hamer and two of her friends in Ruralville, Mississippi. In the Freedom Summer Project of 1964, as you'll see on the picture on the right, 3 of the young volunteers were killed at the hands of the Klan while supporting courageous African Americans who were trying to live with dignity and gain the right to vote. The people I lived with, Andrew and Mary Lou Hawkins, even had 4 members of their family killed after that summer because of their commitment. But they believed the struggle was worth the effort. And within a year, we won a Voting Rights Act because we organized with love at the center, trying to build what those in SNCC call, the SNCC, Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, called the beloved community. And next slide. But we need to move from protest to yielding power. If you've ever wondered what you would have done at the time of the height of the civil rights movement, the answer is whatever it is you're doing now. We can turn this around when we organize and build our political power. We've seen it in issue after issue. I saw it on reproductive freedom. I learned with Jane, the underground collective I started providing abortions before Roe. On marriage equality, whose campaign I coordinated with the Supreme Court decision. On financial reform, winning the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, winning victories that seemed almost unimaginable at the time. And we used all sorts of tactics, protest, legal action, creative events, message amplification. But the key is gaining the levers of power. And this year it means taking back Congress with organizing on the ground and building organization to last for the long haul so we can push back on that Trump agenda and build for the future. That's what Battleground Alliance does. Next slide. We're a coalition of more than 120 national organizations, grassroots, and labor unions. We represent millions of Americans. And together with hundreds more state and local partners, we're building a comprehensive collaborative framework to flip the House for a decisive win, rooted in relationships, trust, and neighbors knowing neighbors. On this chart on this map are examples of some of the groups we're working with or hope to work with. There are many, many more. And we know that lasting power starts on the ground level with organizations that have been showing up in their communities for years. And our strategic framework is working with those existing groups on the ground to build alignment and add organization where there are gaps and design winning plans in about 40 marginal congressional districts. There are some who think the midterm elections will be so threatened they'll be lost. But it depends on what we all do. Some think the midterm elections will definitely lead to victory. But it depends on what we all do. And Battleground Alliance and you together, we're building to make this a wave and win big to set the stage for the struggles ahead. And that's why we have this year-round organizing. Some of our schedule, we already are investing in Know Your Neighbor programs, opening up district offices by March, increasing accountability events and neighbor-to-neighbor contact with volunteer canvases launching on May 2nd through the election, or May 3rd, the National Canvas Day. We hope to see you there. And this is our investment breakdown. We expect this will be a $50 million effort. Now, we're an independent expenditure campaign. It means we're not working in primaries or with any specific campaign or political party. Our expectation is that about 55% of the budget will be invested in on-the-ground field operations and 25% in communications in state, and only about 10% for the overall operations. We're already providing vote goals for each district, so we'll know what it takes to win and build an integrated plan. And you are the people who can make the difference. You are the people who know about building power and organizing for the long haul. It's what brings you to the call today and brings you for your ongoing work. We'll build that protest and turn it into power. We're so grateful to Movement Voter Project and the PAC for being such a wonderful partner with Myrna, Billy, Sarah, Zoe, and so many others. To Nydia from Make the Road, we'll hear from shortly, and Ryan with Progress Alaska, already a Battleground Alliance partner, and to all of those who are dedicating but your lot to making a more just and democratic world. And when we organize with love at the center, we will win this as a more just and democratic world.
Thank you so much, Heather. Much appreciated. And thank you so much for the work that you're doing to coordinate Battleground Alliance. I'm very excited next to introduce Nydia Morsi, who is the director at Make the Road Action New Jersey. Make the Road Action New Jersey is a grassroots organization of immigrant and working class people. Nydia began as a volunteer and a member, and then was hired as the organization's first youth organizer and then as organizing director. I met her a couple of years ago at a conference in Nevada, and I was blown away by the breadth and the depth of the work that Make the Road Action New Jersey is doing. So I'm very excited to have the opportunity to hand this over to Nidia.
Thank you, Sarah, for the incredibly warm introduction. And good afternoon, everyone. My name is Nadia Morsi. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm the director of Make the Road Action. I'm actually sitting in the staircase of Ana Lilia Mejia's headquarters because we are just wrapping up her press conference for her incredible upset here in New Jersey. And I'm going to talk a little bit about how an organization like Make the Road Action that builds year round was able to help deliver such a historic outcome. And I think if anybody on this call knows Ana Lilia, it was only an upset to people that don't know her. Um, anyway, thank you all so much for having me. I'm really happy to be here representing Make the Road Action. We are a 501c4 organization that operates in 5 states: New York, Pennsylvania, Connecticut, Nevada, and New Jersey. We do civic engagement work that is focused on the Latino community. And last November, as you all know, in New Jersey, we elected a new governor. Our governor's race is unique because, along with Virginia, we elect the governor in an odd number year following the presidential election. And nationally, these races can serve as a sort of bellwether. This race can serve as sort of a bellwether of how the electorate feels for the president, and how the president's party is likely to fare in the upcoming midterm election. So we really hope that in sharing some of the work that we did in the last year, it'll provide some foreshadowing, some helpful resource as we head into congressional races this year. And for us in New Jersey, we understand very deeply the responsibility of the gubernatorial race. And at Make the Road Action, it's important to us that we elect a governor who prioritizes the needs of low income and Latino New Jerseyans. And in our experience in New Jersey, campaigns have not always prioritize outreach to BIPOC, low propensity voters. And so as a result, our gubernatorial elections in recent years have had dismal turnout, just about 40% or less. And so last year, we decided to organize community-based organizations across the state to reach out to people of color, low propensity registered voters. And it was a massive undertaking, unlike anything we have ever attempted before. We called it the Million Voter Project, not to be confused with MVP. And collectively, we made 1.2 million attempts to reach nearly 700,000 voters with a focus on CD7 to gear us up for this upcoming year. In the first half of 2025, leading up to the primaries, we already learned a lot on the doors. The first thing that we learned at the top of last year was that the top 2 issues for folks were housing and the economy. And secondly, that folks didn't want another ICE jail in their state. For folks that don't know, New Jersey currently has the most ICE detention beds on the entire East Coast. I myself remember talking to voters who were very honest and forthcoming about their support for the Trump administration and who, on the third knock, shared that someone close to them had been detained. And so the sort of magic of Make the Road Action is that we organize year round to increase civic engagement. And so we began organizing voters in CD7. And in July, we were actually able to stop the 3rd ICE jail from opening up in the state of New Jersey, alongside the folks that we had canvassed. Like I mentioned, housing and the economy and immigration enforcement are the issues that were top of mind in our community. And speaking to these issues is how we got folks to plug in. And campaigns tend to focus on unlikely voters, which is a population that is overwhelmingly white and middle class. But if our intention is to increase participation and create a stronger democracy that works for everybody, we need to be speaking to low propensity voters and the issues that matter to them. And so on this year-round engagement of low propensity voters, the second campaign that we came across was stabilizing rents in one of our cities, in the city of Passaic. And so we were able to actually move a ballot initiative in the late summer and pass one of the strongest rent stabilization ordinances in the entire in the entire state as a result of the deep canvassing that we were doing on the doors. And we continued that way, and Election Day was a huge success. Like I said, collectively, we made 1.2 million attempts to reach nearly 700,000 voters, and we wound up having voter turnout well over 50%. And the major story coming out of Election Day was the Latino vote. Latino neighborhoods, many of which had voted for Trump in 2024, came out in droves for the affordability and the anti-corruption candidate, Mikey Sherrill. And we at Make the Road knocked on nearly 60,000 doors leading up to the general. The highest Latino voter turnout actually happened in the cities that Make the Road, New Jersey, had targeted for canvassing. So Perth Amboy, Elizabeth, and Passaic. The turnout wasn't just a function of the moment and the issues; it was also the result of the tactics we had employed. So, this year, in addition to our field program and a strong coalition of partners, we also implemented a relational organizing program through our organizing and training program with the support of Popular Democracy. So, organizers in 2 of each of our cities mentored 5 organizers in training, member leaders who were ready to take the field and organizing skills to the next level. And those organizers were not just trained to add field capacity, but they also identified potential members and leaders. We have now started the year off with a fantastic win by Ana Lilia. As you know, since Mikey Sherrill had been serving in Congress, we needed to have a special election. The field was full. And there were a lot of doubters, but we knocked on nearly 100,000 doors in the coldest year of the month, and she just eked out a win by less than 1,000 votes. So we had a huge turnout considering the election was on a random day in February. So Make the Road, as I wrap, Make the Road Action is largely active in central and northern New Jersey, and in our part of our state, a district to keep an eye out in November is the 7th Congressional. The seat is currently held by a Republican, Tom Kean Jr. He won a seat in 2022 after redistricting made the district even more challenging. It had previously been held by a Democrat, Tom Malinowski, who just conceded the race in CD 11, but the district is definitely flippable with the right support, and not just because it's a diverse district, but because of what we've seen in both the gubernatorial race and Ana Lilia's race, right? When people of color are hearing from organizers that organize year round, from folks from their own community, they feel heard and they listen and then they vote. So we are committed here in Jersey to keep reaching out to those voters who are typically ignored by the political machines. And we feel very confident that we can flip a district like the 7th. I'm very happy to answer questions, but I'll leave it there. Thank you all so much for the time.
Thank you so much. Much appreciated. I'm going to turn this over now to Mirna Orozco, who serves as MVP's Western State Advisor, supporting organizations in states that include Nebraska, Alaska, California, Colorado, Texas, Nevada, among others. Not a small job. Mirna brings over a decade of experience in organizing, advocacy, and philanthropy. During her tenure at United We Dream, Mirna was part of a campaign team that led to to a historic victory on DACA, and was also a lead architect in setting up the infrastructure to actually implement DACA across the network's 40 affiliates, which helped to protect thousands of immigrant youth from deportation. I am also a fangirl because she has been featured in Univision, Telemundo, CNN, and a panelist at the United Nations. And so with that, I hand it over to Mirna.
Thanks so much, Sarah. So good to be here with everyone today. I'm really excited to be joining you all. And for those of you who are joining from Chinese Post, I am an Aries. So I like to say that I do bring some fire to our team and the West. I am based in Texas, which I know has been known to be a long shot, but doable with more investment. We have really exciting races. And Democrats just flipped a longtime Republican-held state Senate seat in District 9 here, where Trump previously won by over 17 points. So I know that more wins like this are possible this year, and in this state with continued investment, thanks to folks like you all who know the importance of investing early, often, and long term. So thank you for that. I, as Sarah mentioned, get to work in the West, which includes a series of states. So I do have the coolest job. Sorry to everyone else who would like to get to work in these places. And so I'm going to share a little bit about what some of these states are up to. We are going to get to Alaska, and I'll talk to that about that in a bit. But I do want to share, in Colorado, we have a great opportunity in Congressional District 8. MVP has been supporting partners in building out volunteer canvas teams and getting to the doors early with clear messages about what's at stake in this election. In California, we have the opportunity to kick out my personal nemesis, Daryl Issa, who has been horrible on immigration, in Congressional District 48, with the new maps that were recently upheld by the Supreme Court. And we can elect progressives in places like Congressional District 22. Nebraska is also in the mix. And as a person who grew up in the Midwest, also known as the Midbest, as you can tell, I have a lot of love for all the states. They are working to turn out voters in Nebraska too with innovative programs and infrastructure building. Partners like Be Black Action. Black in Action Collective, excuse me, are registering and mobilizing voters now and aren't waiting until the week before election. And in Nevada, we do have the opportunity to win a trifecta, and our partners like One API Nevada and Battleborn Future are mobilizing young people across the state to turn up and turn out with parties, relevant information, and culturally competent messaging. So, across these amazing states, partners are already on the ground doing the work and getting out to ensure that voters know where to vote, how to vote, and who to vote for in this upcoming election. And of course, there's Alaska. I do want to take some personal credit here for Mary Peltola running for Senate. So do with that what you will. I got to go to Alaska in June. It was my very first time. And it was the most beautiful place I've ever seen. And I got to meet Mary in one of the events organized by Ryan and team, and made it a personal mission to let her know how much we needed her to run for Senate. We had friends there from the Democratic Governors Association also telling her to run for governor instead, and a couple of others. And so I won and I take credit. And now we have to do all we can to elect her and help move that forward. So, with that being said, I am going to pass it over to our friend Ryan from Alaska. They are already helping to do so much good work. And Ryan is leading this table with amazing organizations, helping resource organizations across the state, working with rural, Indigenous, and all Alaskan communities to show up early and help us win. Thank you so much for being here, Ryan, and for all of the work that you do. And so I will pass it on to you.
Amazing. Thank you. When I chose not to do slides, I didn't realize you'd have to look at this picture of of my screenshot there. But there's been a lot of conversation here about hope and about excitement and enthusiasm and energy that is building. And I just want to say we feel all of that in Alaska. We also have a plan. We have a plan to bring the ruckus at every single level of the elections that we're experiencing this year. And it's going to be a really exciting year. I'm going to kind of walk folks through what the next 9 months or so looks like, and why I think that we can win at every single level of the ballot. But first, I want to do the most brief rundown of what Alaska looks like, because there's so many misconceptions out there. People think about Alaska as Sarah Palin and polar bears and frankly, white guys who look like me with a beard. And yes, we have those things, but 40% of Alaskans identify as people of color. We're one of the second or third youngest states in the nation, depending on how you measure it. We are a state that is going through changes, and as a result, we have been building political success every single election cycle for roughly the past 10 years. And we've achieved those wins by investing at the local level, not just in our larger cities like Anchorage, but in places like Fairbanks that are heavily Trump-influenced communities. And we've picked up seats every single step of the way at our state legislature. And we do that by investing in the people and the systems on the ground and the people who can win in their district. And so that brings me to what we have in front of us this cycle. And we've been talking about 2026 in Alaska for at least the last 5 years. We've been calling it our Super Bowl. We don't have bad money, unfortunately, but we do have an incredible set of candidates. And so we think that we're going to be able to, like I said, really, really play this out over the next few months. And, we start at the local level, like I mentioned. We've got municipal elections coming up in Anchorage here soon. That's a great opportunity to flex our muscles, practice our political game, get our organizers out there working, volunteers in action, get our donors starting to get fired up. And then we roll into our big November elections. And we are going to be defending progressive majorities in both chambers of our state legislature. And we're going to be working to expand the majorities in both of those chambers. We've got the candidates, we've got the people, and we've got the groups to do it. We've got exciting ballot initiatives. Well, and some that are frankly threats. Opponents to our open primaries and our ranked choice voting system that have been boons for progressives in Alaska are working to repeal it. we've got to fight back their effort and hold our ground there. At the congressional level, we've got two very exciting candidates. Reverend Matt Schultz is running as a pastor. He's a great communicator, very exciting candidate. We also have a gentleman, an independent, Athabascan commercial fisherman, who's running as an independent, who we think can reach some different audiences and is bringing a lot of enthusiasm to the race. And all of that compares to our current Congressman, Nick Begich, who frankly is just kind of a weenie and not very Alaskan, and barely beat Mary Peltola last cycle, even in a huge Trump victory. And then we come to Mary Peltola and the campaign for U.S. Senate, where Mary Peltola was one of the highest overperforming Democrats of anybody in the entire nation last year. She has chosen to take on U.S. Senator Dan Sullivan, who we believe is incredibly vulnerable. He is undefined to Alaska voters. He is somebody who has been a yes man for Donald Trump and the swamp, and has gone along with that effort every single step of the way, which is not the same thing as protecting and fighting for Alaskans. And so we have been laying the groundwork with field programs, trying to build out indigenous organizing programs in some of the most remote and rural communities in the entire nation. We've been laying the groundwork and doing the research on the communications front to frame Dan Sullivan for well over a year and a half at this point. We've got the messages that we know we need to win. We've got the teams that we know we need to win. And frankly, we're going to win.
Thank you so much, Ryan. Much appreciated. We are now going to shift into our roundtable with a couple of questions for our panelists. So our first question, and panelists, feel free to dive in where you'd like. Where are you seeing shifts in voter perception as a result of your work? You all detailed significant work that you're doing in the field with voters on an individual and collective basis. Where are you seeing shifts in voters' perception as a result of that?
Well, I'll jump in and say that, we've been running field programs that have been out there knocking doors and having conversations with Alaskans, including in communities that typically don't have people knocking on their doors even during the election, let alone a year plus in advance. And what we're hearing from voters is that, people are concerned about affordability, just as they are all around the country. But the hyper local issues are the things that are really rising to the top and are moving people's opinions. So a very Alaska specific one, the cuts to public radio. The tragic loss of Big Bird, like that's a thing for the whole nation. But in rural Alaska, public radio is not just news. It is a source of life and death. It is
Mm.
fisheries reports. It's information being shared about weather systems that are coming in. It's communications from one village to another. And that's what we were hearing, was that people were extraordinarily concerned about that. And so we were able to get communications built out. We were able to get field programs built out to make sure that people knew that Dan Sullivan and Nick Begich had just voted to cut public radio there. And by going with that hyper localized message and staying away from just the generic national message, but bringing it home to people, we are starting to see some very serious movement in the polls.
Thanks, Ryan. Go ahead, Heather.
I think overall, we have to realize how we are building this movement. The opposition is dividing, our confidence is growing. And it's sometimes hard to realize that these are results of what we're doing, of what you're doing every day with a variety of work that you're carrying on. It's sometimes hard to recognize it because the threats are so intense and the pain is so real. But Trump is increasingly unpopular. The majority of this country believe his policies have gone too far. They make us less safe, less affordable. And in spite of his lies, the country believes this in part because of the work you're all doing. And we've had, in terms of the results of the work, on a broad level, we've heard already from Myrna and others about the Texas Senate seat, the overperforming by Democrats in special elections, and the states in which that happened included Virginia, Arizona, Florida, Tennessee, just last week in Louisiana. And so it's happening all over. I saw a number of questions were about, are you dealing with voters who more or less would support us if they were engaged, or people who may even have supported Trump? There's now a 13 to 16% of Trump voters who regret their vote. And that's a reflection of the work that you're all doing and that we're all doing together, turning our anger into action.
Thank you so much. Those shifts don't happen right on their own, right? Those are a result of the work that we're doing. Nadia, I think I saw you trying to get in there.
Yeah, just to say, like I think it underlines the importance of year-round canvassing. Like I had mentioned, like what we're seeing is that because the attacks of the Trump administration have been so quick, being able to go to the same door a few times and like be with people as they are trying to make meaning of what is happening is incredibly important. Like we've seen people who on the first knock were like, I'm gonna give this a go. Like things weren't working with the Democrats. I went this other way. I'm interested to see how the chips fall. And when we come back like 2 months later, they were like, this has gotten worse. And so I think the it's just so important that we're high touch, consistent touch, because people want to be in conversation with others as they struggle to understand the moment and to figure out where to put all that. And so, canvassing year round, and then also creating civic engagement campaigns so that folks can plug in and understand what civic engagement means and not wait just for the election for that to happen.
Thank
gonna
you. And I really want to double down on the high touch, consistent touch approach that Make the Road Action New Jersey has employed. I'm going to move on to our second question. In these tumultuous times, what is giving you hope?
Minnesota, please just start. But really, all of us need to be agents of hope. There is hope all around us. This call gives us hope. The work that we're doing, that Nadia just described on deep canvassing, that Myrna described, what Ryan described in Alaska, that's going on all around the country. These are just samples of it. And MVP gives us hope. And we have to carry that forward. The one other thing I'd say is that sometimes out of the greatest tragedy can come the greatest advance because it calls us forward. But it is up to us.
Thank you, Ryan, Nydia, Myrna. What's giving you hope in these tumultuous times?
I can share. It has now been a little more than a year since the Trump administration has taken office. We've been canvassing year round. Our canvassers have come upon ICE agents conducting targeted enforcement 4 times. Once they were accompanied to the door with an ICE agent, and still, folks, we on this on just this special election, we had 300 unique members who volunteered for Ana Lilia Mejia. And so I think the thing that is giving me hope is the fact that so many directly impacted folks are still moved and motivated by the hope of what we can build over the consequence of the risk of being out in the street.
This is a tough question for me. I'm a natural pessimist. Um, so, but I wasn't lying earlier when I said I am hopeful, and I'm hopeful because we've had enough supporters and supporters like y'all from the lower 48 who have believed in us and believed in our ability to build something truly powerful for 2026. I always say Alaska is kind of like Joe Cocker. We get by with a little help from our friends. And so thank you to everybody who's helped us build up the systems and the machines to get us here. And the thing that gives me hope is that we're seeing the dividends. I just referenced our internal polling that we just got back around our campaign holding Dan Sullivan accountable for his atrocities. Has shown that for the first time ever, we've seen his popularity dip underwater, and not just a little, but start to really crash underwater. We've seen the amount of people saying that he deserves re-election absolutely crashing. And we've seen in head-to-head competitions, Mary Peltola either winning or in an exact tie. And so that's what long-term sustained organizing can do. You're hearing a recurring theme here, right? That's what getting an extra 3 rounds of conversations at the doors or phone calls or extra town halls in the communities that don't otherwise get the town halls, getting the extra ads out there a year or two in advance to frame things before it's just suddenly a big nationalized election. So that's what gives me hope, is that people believed in us and helped us build the tools we needed.
Thanks, everyone. This is one of my favorite questions. Lately, it's been hard to have a lot of hope when so many things are knocking on your door and you're scared as someone with immigrant family members directly impacted. It's hard not to feel fearful every time you leave the door. But one of the biggest things that gives me hope is that I wasn't lying when I said I had the coolest job ever, which is talking to amazing partners all around the country that are out there day in and day out, knocking on doors in the cold, knocking out doors in the heat, having conversations with real people, with their neighbors, and stepping up and out for each other, and realizing that, the other side wants us to be alone, wants us to be by ourselves, wants us to be down. And we're really showing them what community looks like, what collective action looks like, what coming together looks like. And that's made possible by the amazing groups all around the country that are doing this work. And also the fact that it's a Tuesday afternoon and there's over 500 people of you on this call looking for ways to plug in and to be in that community that's going to help us win this year is pretty damn awesome. So that will help me and continue to keep me going every day.
Thank you. We're going to wrap up our panel discussion with a third question. I'm going to call on each of you to answer it. What is the one thing you hope participants will share with their friends and neighbors from this briefing? The one thing that you hope that participants will share with friends and neighbors as a result of this briefing. And I'm going to ask Heather to start.
I'll end with what I started with, that when we organize with love at the center, we have changed this world, we need to change this world, and we will change this world. If there's time, I have one other thought I wanted to share.
Great, we'll come right back. Yep. Nadia.
I think we've started to hear, or at least I'll speak for me. I feel like I've heard in the last year or so that folks have their doubts about the power of door knocking. But I really think that the lesson that we should take away is like the value of it. I mean, Ana Lilia Mejia is likely to become the next congresswoman in a district that has been historically moderate with less than 1,000 votes. Um, we can't undermine the fact that doors made the difference and deep canvassing made the difference. And so, like, I can appreciate like the feeling of the Trump election, feeling like we have to throw everything we did out the playbook, but like maybe not. Maybe we go and read the book again and like add a few chapters and take out some others. But door knocking works and year-round canvassing works.
I'm going to go to Myrna next.
That it's so easy to plug in and do something and take action. And it can be as simple as telling your friends, here's a place where you can go volunteer to knock on a door, or where here you can give some resources that you might have to be able to help those that are out there doing the work continue to help our people win. And so it's easy to plug in. Anybody can do it, and MVP's here to help you.
Thank you. And rounding up with Ryan, and then I'll come back to you, Heather, for a final thought.
I think there was a reoccurring theme that we haven't like hit the nail squarely on the head of, which is that we've got to be taking this fight everywhere. If we think about the map and what is politically feasible as like very narrow things of like, oh, I don't know, that's a Trump +2 thing, or that's a Trump +1 thing. And if we take that kind of myopic vision, like we will lose. But when we think creatively, when we allow ourselves to become inspired, when we look at the unique interests of those districts and what is going to take to win there, there's been examples all across this presentation today of places where we either just have won, we're on the verge of winning, or there's the possibility of winning that would have seemed crazy 4 years ago. And so to me, it's about bringing the fight everywhere.
By the way, related to that, the DCCC, this wasn't going to be my last comment, but the DCCC today, or I just saw today, said there are 5 more districts that were all Trump plus 13 that are now on their marginal list. We are expanding the map because of what you do, but it is up to us. I was going to end with a thought I had going back to my experience from the civil rights movement to today. In Mississippi, people ask each other sometimes, are you willing to die for freedom? And though we very much wanted to live, we were willing to take that risk if it meant we could advance a struggle. And for 50 years, we did advance that struggle and make progress. But now the question is, will you live for freedom? Will you do the work every day? Will you do the work when it's too cold or too hot, or you're too tired, or it's too boring? I've done this before. I've knocked on the doors before. Nydia, I love you that you're pushing the Canvas operation, and that Ryan, that you're expanding the map, and Myrna, that you're bringing us hope. And all of those are the qualities that you who are watching this and supporting MVP, the qualities we need to embody as we live for freedom. And when we do the work and convert it to political power, we will win and be back on this call in celebration for what comes next.
Thank you, Heather. I can't imagine a better way to end this panel discussion. Please join me in thanking our panelists, Ryan, Heather, Nydia, and Myrna. I'm now going to turn this over to Zoe to close us up and move us to the optional Q&A. Thank you.
Ooh, wow. Thank you. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, Heather, Ryan, Myrna, Nydia. Thank you all for being here. And thank you to everybody who tuned into this. Wow, I'm just feeling so moved hearing what everyone said. I'll say a word about what each of us can do to live for freedom. This is our invitation to you, and then we'll close the call and open up the 30-minute Q&A for extra Q&A. So one thing you can do coming out of this is I like to think of this as donating at your no regrets number. I'm thinking about what Heather said, and what does it look like? What does it mean for each of us to live for freedom, to do the work, to do what we're called to do what we are willing to do, that we have the resources to do. One of the things we can do is put our money where it can make the most impact. I think one of the best places to put our money is right here in MVP and in our grantee partner organizations. We're going to put the information in the chat and send out how you can donate to MVP and our partners. But go back to the other slide for just a sec. What I want you to do is just think for a moment about after the election, the morning after the election this November. Imagine how it will feel if we swing for the fences and we flip the House, and through what feels like almost a miracle, we even flip the Senate and we win down ballot, and it's like the best possible outcome. Think of how that feels, and then bring yourself back to this moment and ask yourself, how much can I give so that I'll know that I've done all that I could this election? And you want to just take a moment and think, what is that number? And now ask yourself, if we lose, let's say we lose the House or we lose the Senate by just a few votes, which has happened many times, if we lose, would I regret not having given more? And if the answer is yes, then I want you to raise that amount and just keep raising it until you see that your answer is no, I would not regret it. I've done all I could. So I want to invite you to give all that you can now or as soon as you can, because, as everything we've heard from all the speakers today, the earlier the money comes in, the more votes it turns into. So give what you can. Thank you so much for being here. We'll put up the slide about ways to give, and we'll send all this out to you so you don't have to take notes in the moment. And with that, I will officially close out this call. If you got to go, perfect time to go. And now we are going to enter our optional extra 30-minute Q&A. So thank you all for being here. Thank you so much. And we are going to look at the questions coming in. And yeah, you can, so here's some guidance for the Q&A. You can ask questions about anything you heard on this call, anything about MVP's broader strategy. You want to have any of our speakers who are able to stay dive deeper into their work. You can ask about that. You can raise your hand or share in the chat. And try to be concise. Start with my question is, and if you have a PSA or a shameless plug to give, use the chat for that. Use the chat for that so we can get as many questions as we can. All right, so let's see. I'm going to look at the questions here. Okay, this is a question from Daniel. Could the Texas redistricting actually help Democrats by diluting Republican majorities in some districts? It's a perfect question. And I want to see, Mirna, are you still on here? Are you able to stay?
If not, I can.
Yes.
Oh, yes. Okay,
Go
great.
for it, Sarah. Oh.
No, please.
Hi. Yeah. So what we've seen is that yes, it could. It's going to take a lot of work for our partners to be able to reach new voters. We're going to be running some immigrant moment, on being able to come up with messaging that reaches those folks in various districts, including Congressional District 34, among others, where we've seen that our partners have both a presence in, have folks already on the ground, and are coming up with innovative ways and messaging to reach new folks, new voters, Latino communities in those areas, and do all we can to contest for power. I think Ryan mentioned it lastly, is like we have to fight and be everywhere, and that is part of the plan in a place like Texas, and to contest every race and build up the infrastructure that we need to be able to set us up to do so, not just this cycle, but in the future as well.
Thanks, Mirna. Sarah, anything you want to add?
Nope.
Yep, that did it. Thank you, Mirna. Okay, so let's see. Getting more questions. Yes, so we have a question we definitely want to address about election interference. What makes us think there's even going to be an election in these midterms? Sarah, I'd love to start with you. Heather would love you to jump in. Talk about how does our election system work with the difficulty of actually canceling elections, and what is it that our partners on the ground are doing to make sure that the elections happen and that voters are protected?
Sure, happy to. So this isn't new, right? Like voter protection has been a big part of MVP and our partners' work for a long time, but we've been seeing renewed efforts to undermine our elections by the Trump administration because, frankly, they are afraid that they are going to lose. So we're looking at this through a couple of different ways, and it's consistently evolving because, frankly, the threat is consistently evolving. And so one of the ways that we've been looking to combat this is by electing solid town election administrators who are there and trained and supported to ensure that we have free and fair elections. That is, like, at the local level, the most baseline thing that we can do. And a lot of our partners are doing it. I actually just got an update from one of our partners in New Hampshire that they've recruited 37 local candidates for their spring elections. These are the things that we're doing in advance to ensure that we have free and fair elections. Second piece is around that block strategy that I referenced earlier, is ensuring that we've got solid secretaries of states and AGs who can ensure election administration, and that we have the Supreme Court majorities to essentially uphold the free and fair elections. The third thing that we can do is largely around affecting the SAVE Act. And affecting the SAVE Act at the federal level with Congress right now is largely going to happen, I think, in the U.S. Senate. So applying a lot of pressure to U.S. senators around the particular pieces of the SAVE Act, and that's both Republicans and Democrats.
Sarah, what's the SAVE Act?
Oh, sorry. Oh gosh, please don't make me think of what the acronym is for.
You don't have to know the acronym.
But it's essentially the Trump administration's effort to undermine the elections by requiring people to show identification and a variety of other pieces to keep people from voting. And it's in the U.S. Senate. The U.S. Senate is largely the place where we may see it die, hopefully. But then, of course, there's also the judicial strategies that we have as well. And you heard me mention earlier that we've started to invest in some legal interventions as well with our partners. So those are four things that we are, that we've traditionally focused on and will continue to focus on. But the threat is evolving. And frankly, like this is the next phase of the work that my team really needs to dig in even more is as the threat evolves, how is our strategy going to evolve with it?
Awesome, thanks. Yeah, curious, Heather or anybody else if you want to add in on this one.
Just two small things to add. Sarah really dug into it in a helpful way, and I'm glad MVP will be focused on it. There are now legal teams that are unprecedented. I've been through many, many of these election rounds, and there's a level of voter support operations and anti-voter suppression efforts that are quite remarkable and have been going on and building for years and are now moving forward. Norm Eisen heads up one team. There's a number of others, and there are at least hundreds, probably thousands of groups that are also working on it on the ground. So the legal is not separated from the organizing strategy. But the second thing I wanted to say is still as agents of hope based on honesty, not on an imagined future, we need to talk about how the importance of voting, how we will change it. When there is a groundswell, we will be unstoppable because we don't want to suppress the vote inadvertently by focusing on the threats themselves. So in a context of we can do this if we organize, and when the groundswell is as enormous as we believe it is becoming, then we will also be able to take those measures that Sarah mentioned, deal with the threats, and organize people to win.
Thank you, Heather. This is great. Okay, let's see. I'm going to take some hands. Let's see. Let's take Julie and then Harriet. And you can come off mute, Julie.
Great, thank you. I'm real concerned about the voters that voted for Joe Biden in 20 but did not show up for Kamala in 24. And I was wondering if any thoughts, I'm trying to brainstorm what's the best practice for the method of reaching them and also the messaging. And I didn't know if you all had thought about that or if have a plan in mind for that.
Sure. A lot of our partners are focusing heavily on folks who didn't show up in 24. And a lot of the work, it varies from state to state, but a lot of the work is really centered around issues of affordability and those hyper-local issues that Ryan mentioned. That's kind of the approach that we're looking at for these, for the voters who essentially skipped 2024. A lot of the work, too, around the voters that skipped 2024 is around persuasion and narrative. Vote skippers in 2024, a lot of them skipped because they didn't like either party. They felt like neither party was going to support their needs. Neither party was really interested in helping them, and that neither party was really representative of what they were looking for. And so some of the work we can do internally at MVP around issue engagement, persuasion, so on and so forth. Some of the work also lies in the Democratic Party doing some reinvention of itself as well. And we're doing some work internally here at MVP to determine where we can support interventions in that space. But we also need to be working hand in hand with the party to ensure that they are the party that the vote skippers are seeing as the party of affordability, that they are the party of care, that they are the party of empathy, that they are here for the big wide tent. And that is something that I think will be really critical.
I think one of the reasons that so many, I was both on the national Biden 2020 campaign as part of the national outreach and on the 2024 Biden and then Harris campaign. Though this is a longer answer, I'm not going to go into it now. Having started as a person when I was quite young, skeptical about politics overall, but I learned. Um, part of what part of the reason that we did not win, but it was only, first of all, 1.5% was the difference in the election. We should understand that it was close and we can overcome that difference. But one of the big reasons that we didn't win at that point was because we didn't connect with people in their real lives. We didn't show we understood how people were struggling. And we were just praising all the good work that was done that people didn't feel in their life. And now there is an engagement of people's real problems. They're taking billions from our healthcare. We can't afford our healthcare. We can't, we're not sure what we'll do. I'm 80 years old. What will be my future healthcare? What will be the healthcare of my kids? And other kinds of, when Sarah says affordability, utility rates, food prices, other things, as well as other issues, environmental, women's issues, civil rights issues in our community. So we're talking with people about their issues and engaging them, not just like an end game campaign that says, knock on your door, I'm a stranger, vote for me or vote for my candidate. But doing what Nedia talked about, in what Battleground Alliance is talking about as a neighbor to neighbor program, getting neighbors to know other neighbors, having the potluck dinners, talking over while we're eating to say, what can we do together? How can we make this a better world? Dealing with their issues and organizing together.
Ooh, well said. Ryan, I see your hand. Jump on in and would love your thoughts on this too.
Yeah, I was just going to offer a specific experience that we had in Alaska, where for the past two election cycles, we've been able to analyze anonymous voter data for every single voter at every single level of the ballot. And what we've seen is that there are more than 50% of voters who are splitting their tickets at different elements of the ballot. And so we can look at people who chose not to vote for Kamala Harris, but see that then they did come over and they voted for Democrat Mary Peltola down the line, and then keep tracking their vote on down. And we see that there's a mix of support for independents and Republicans and Democrats going on there. And Alaska does seem to have a higher ticket splitting concentration than some other states do. But I think that we need to recognize that in our world, this is a very binary conversation, but in voters' minds, it might not be quite as binary as we always think it is. And so we need to be thinking about how we can have conversations with these people who are demonstrating that they are open-minded to consider certain types of candidates that may not totally line up with whatever that top of the ticket is. And I just wanted to throw that out there, that I think it's really important to be thinking that way.
Oh, that's great. I'm going to take a sort of follow-up question to everybody here on that. And Nadia, feel free to jump in too. And then we're going to jump to Harriet. I know you've had your hand up, and then Rick after that. And in terms of what we're talking about, anything else you want to say about the difference that early money makes? You know, a lot of donors are wondering, okay, it makes sense. I don't want to wait until October to give, because obviously that money's not going to do as much good. But what about, you know, giving every month, spreading it out? Does it really make a difference to get the money sooner? And what does that change on the ground? What does that make something possible that, you know, could change the outcomes of things? So anything you want to say about that? And Nadia, jump into, and Myrna too.
Yeah, I mean, I think, Make the Road Action believes in an intergenerational model. When Sarah had shared at the top, I became a youth member of Make the Road when I was 19 years old. I'm 33 today, and became
It's your
the
birthday
director.
today?
No, no, no. I'm 33. Sorry, like
Oh,
these
okay.
days, I'm 33.
Okay.
Um, and I became the director about 9 months ago. More than 30% of our staff are former members. It is an important model for us that we're leading, that our organization is led by folks directly impacted. And one of the most powerful ways that people can dip their toes in organizing is the ability to canvass. You can't have a robust canvassing program where you're investing in members who have maybe never sent an email, have never recorded data in minivan. If you're only able to bring them on for short spurts, like if your intention is to build a movement, then you have to have the ability to invest in people year round, and that's what we're forfeiting when we are not running a program throughout the year and just focusing on the elections. What we did in CD11 today, the gubernatorial race last year, the ability to once upon a time have flipped CD7 was work that has been going on for more than a decade.
Wow, thanks, Nadia. Yeah, any others want to jump in on that question? Oh, what's early money got to do with all this?
I'll just add on really quickly that it makes all the difference. I talk to partners every day, some of whom have to lay off their staff right after an election or right after like peaks and highs. And being able to keep those folks on makes all the difference between being able to scale up a program when resources and opportunities arise to having to rehire, retrain, and reset up programming every single time. So being able to have your field staff, being able to have your team there, continuously engaging voters, continuously talking to people year round, really does make wins possible and ensures that people can spend time doing the work, not having to retrain, rehire every time there's an opportunity for us to contest for power.
I'll just jump in to say that, look, we're trying to, through our rural and indigenous outreach program, hiring up organizers in tiny communities, sometimes less than 100 people, that are only accessible by small, little tiny airplanes or boats and skiffs on a river. It takes a long time to hire and train people in those communities and get them fully up to speed on how to do this work well. And more importantly, it takes time to build trust in the community. You can't just prop this stuff up in October. It's too late. Like the game, we've already missed the opportunity. So the investments need to be now.
Thanks, Ryan. Okay, so we are going to go to Harriet and then Rick, and then we're going to take a question from Jonathan Gibson in the chat, and then Susan. We'll see how much time we have here, and we'll do what we can. And just huge thanks again to all the speakers for staying on and everybody else. Harriet, see if you can come off mute. Looks like you're still muted. There you go.
Yeah, thanks. You've covered a few of the things that were answered my questions, but I just wanted to say that I've done a lot of phone calling and door knocking in the past for some local elections in the Hudson Valley of New York. And I can't say enough about how much it matters to have familiarity with the people whose doors you're knocking and also the people you're phone calling. And I was incredibly frustrated by the inadequacy of the campaign-oriented phone calling that was done, that was driven by Democratic Party information. It was a little bit better when we were trying to register voters, but I still found it incredibly inadequate. The training was terrible. And this was in a district where we were successful in flipping the county and flipping the region and electing Democrats in upstate region. So
in spite of ineffective party operations.
But so now I'm 10 years older plus, and I'm not in the position to do as much door knocking. And I have people who are my peers who want to support the work on the ground, and we also understand that. And I guess I'd just like to know how can we reach more people? I've just found out about your organization, and I think it's exactly what so many of the people who are my peers need, because they're not super wealthy to be able to give a lot of money, but they feel like, I'm in New York. What am I going to do now? We're totally Democratic unless you're in something that's really a swing district. I feel like my my energy isn't used profitably. And so I'd like to find a way. I'll, listen to your answers. And if there are things by asking you more questions, how do I even turn on friends of mine who are my peers who are in other parts of the country who don't want to just give to the DCC and, individual candidates. They want to make their money count. So
Wow. I swear we didn't plant Harriet in the audience to ask this question. I swear we did not.
I just heard about you 2 days ago from a
Wow.
friend.
So
Yeah, so
amazing. It's one of the things that I love about MVP. We're not just raising money, but we are treating MVP supporters as human beings who have time, talent, treasure, and actually helping you organize your networks, your family, your friends to support MVP and learn more about this work. We have a whole donor organizing program. And Regina or Rebecca or Alicia, is one of you want to pop up and just give a
Yeah.
quick little bit
Hi,
on that?
Harriet. So
Hi.
glad that you found us and know about us. I'll be sending you an email too after the call, but welcome to MVP. We have a whole bunch, you may have been seeing in the chat, folks naming like, I'm a volunteer, I'm in Washington, I'm in Eastern Mass. We have not only volunteer donor organizers who are doing everything you said of like telling their networks, organizing them, organizing their folks to like organize resources for these groups that we heard about in different geographic areas across the country, but we also have national programming, and folks from anywhere around the country can join us in learning more about how to become like a donor, organizer, volunteer. I will be sending you more information about it, but definitely check out our website where we have movement.vote/volunteer to give an overview, both in terms of like, how do you go about reaching out to your network? How do you host something like a house party? Do you want to take on, these powerful, engaging roles of coaching others in to host successful events and things like that. But excited that you're here and excited to bring you into the fold of that program.
Thanks. I look forward to it.
Wow. Thanks, Alicia. Wow. Okay. Yes. So let's see. And thank you, Harriet. Welcome. Welcome to MVP. Let's go to Rick next, and then we're going to go to a question from the chat. Rick Moskovitz, come off mute if you can.
There
we go.
Yeah, it wouldn't click off. Okay, so I have several concerns. I'm particularly concerned about the threats to free and fair elections, voter suppression, voter intimidation, all those things I think are really important, and they are a real threat. And it seems to me that that is a nonpartisan sort of issue. So my question is actually about structure and finances of MVP. I got turned on to you guys by a college classmate before the last election, and I ended up, doing a fairly substantial nonprofit donation to Movement Voter Fund, the 501c3 arm of MVP. I have no idea how that money was spent. It was donated on faith. I heard good things about the organization, but I'm still not entirely sure what Movement Voter Fund does. But it seems to me that there is a substantial role for that arm in this election in the area of dealing with voter suppression and voter intimidation and free and fair elections. My other comment about that is that there are a lot of people out there like me who have a deeper nonprofit pocket than before tax pocket. I have a donor advised fund. I can only use those funds toward a 501c3, and I can't do it for a PAC or a 501c4. And I'm kind of wondering if there is a way to augment that side of the funding to deal with that huge issue by appealing to people for supporting free and fair elections.
Yeah,
Seems
yeah.
like we could bring in a lot of money into that arm.
Yeah, I can answer that. Part of this is, kind of a legal answer that I need to give. This is a PAC partisans call, so we can't talk about any nonpartisan content here.
Okay.
But get in touch with us and we can discuss, and we'd love to follow up. In this context, what we can say is there's an incredible value in partisan dollars because it allows groups on the ground to have conversations with voters, not just about going to vote, but who to vote for, and just speaking more explicitly um, in ways that can't actually happen with nonpartisan dollars. So that's what I can say in this context, and definitely follow up, and we can discuss more. So, but thank you for that.
Yeah. Is it possible to actually have a meeting specifically for the nonpartisan people?
Yeah, we
Separate
we
meeting?
can discuss more about that sort of thing outside of this event.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Sounds good.
Yeah, thanks, Rick. There's something I actually wanted to pull that dovetails into the conversation we were having, which came from the chat. I'm forgetting who said it now, but somebody was asking about Jonathan Gibson from Vermont was asking, my friends, they're getting more and more emails from candidates asking for money. Our inboxes are just flooded with candidate requests. Why give to these, grassroots, these community-based organizations that are not candidates? They're not the party entities. What's the unique added value of this sort of community-based organizing work? So curious if our speakers, y'all have been so generous with your time. Anything you want to say about that before we close out?
I got lots to say about that.
Let her rip.
So, I have a tendency to view elections, and Progress Alaska views elections as a snapshot in time, right? It's essentially a nationwide poll that we take that tells us where we're at and where our progress is at. But we all know that there's a lot that goes into each of those specific races. We need well-funded candidates. We need well-funded independent expenditure and support groups that are focused on winning that election. But we know that in the world of politics, there will be ups and downs. The pendulum does swing, and we're not going to always win. And if we want to be winning more consistently than we're on the losing side, we have to build for the long haul. And often what happens when we have even a really good candidate that ends up falling short, everything just crumbles afterwards. And we're left with no tangible long-term movement. And so if we're not building the movement and building the community around these candidates to create an ecosystem where more and more candidates can be successful, we are going to find ourselves on the wrong side of the W and loss column than we want to be.
Ooh, well said, Ryan. Who else? Heather, I see you're off mute.
Though I thought Ryan answered it so well, I was going to step back, but I had a particular thought. I've been on both sides of it. I spent much of my life working and building organizations in communities and on the issues and with various constituencies. I've also spent a good deal of my life working in campaigns for candidates to advance it. Both are needed. But a particular benefit of the organizations that MVP supports is that it creates a trusted relationship with people so that you are trusted messengers. It's not just a candidate knocking on the door and saying, vote for me, for whatever reason. And many of them we work for good reasons. But it means building that relationship in an ongoing way over years, and then fighting alongside of people to win on lowering utility rates, keeping the rural hospital open, ensuring that there are programs that actually give accurate education to our kids and don't blind them to what our real history was, with all its warts and all its beauty. And that's what an ongoing organization does, especially one that may be particularly suited to a neighborhood or a state like the New Jersey, the Make the Road, and the Alaska group are, or to a constituency, Black Voters Matter, or Mi Familia Vota, or Unidos, or whatever the groups are. And there's a particular voice and engagement that you can get from the grassroots. It's also important that we have candidates who reflect those concerns. So both are needed, but this is needed right now, the organization.
Ooh, amen. Thank you so much, Heather. Well said. We're going to close in a moment, so just want to offer to the speakers any closing thoughts on this or anything else, and then we'll close for now until next time.
Yeah, I just to share, I think it's really important that, you know, the value out of the organizations is that year round they're moving campaigns. And so one, folks that we've spoken to on the doors have the opportunity to plug in to understand what civic participation means and looks like. And second, you've provided a space where candidates will have to be on the record of like what was their participation in this campaign that grassroots groups were organizing in the same time frame in which they were launching a campaign, or as they were thinking about a campaign, like what were their reflections about this work that was happening on the ground. Like it allows you to shape the narrative as people consider the work that they want to do, consider the platform they want to envision. Like it's what they say, whoever sets the agenda first wins. That's what we do when we canvass year round.
Well said. Ryan, Myrna, Sarah, anything you want to add?
I'm happy to close out with that.
All right. Well, thank you again so much. The 160 of you who are still on half an hour after we closed. And thank you to our speakers. Thank you for the incredible work you're doing. It's such a privilege to be in this together, and let's go do this. So we'll see you out there, and let's be in touch. We've got to take this road together. Let's swing for the fences this year and change our country. Thanks, everyone. See you soon.